CNBC-TV18 Adobe present Experience Makers.
Hello and welcome to another podcast of the Adobe Experience Makers brought to you by CNBC TV18. I'm your host, Paramita Chatterjee. Now, over the course of the past few weeks, we've been exploring how brands can really enhance and deliver on the customized customer experience in today's digital age, particularly marketers, and how they're going about addressing the various demands that customers have given the multitude of touch points and, of course, the increasing complexities in today's marketplace. In each podcast, we take up one special focus, and today's focus on the podcast is going to be making the digital economy personal. Because delivering an exceptional customer experience in the current digital world always means delivering a personalized experience. And most brands have a vision for delighting customers with experiences that feel tailored and unique. However, they find it hard to execute it at scale. So, to discuss this, we have with us two very special guests on Adobe Experience Makers. Let me introduce them to you, starting with MVS Murthy, who's the Chief Marketing Officer at Federal
Hi,
Bank.
Paramita. Hi. Thank you for having me on your show.
Great to have you with us. And next, we have Varun Dandona, who's the Head of Enterprise Sales at Adobe.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making the time and sharing your insights. And all our viewers want to know about how they really need to adapt and deliver in today's digital world. So, MVS, let me start with you, because particularly when it comes to banks and offering a personalized experience while ensuring that they have security and privacy, how are you addressing it in today's digital world? What measures have your bank taken?
So, Paramita, for a bank, there are two areas of personalization that we need to look at, and we'll address both of them. One is the human level of personalization, in the sense that how much do our employees understand the customer when a customer comes to meet you inside a branch. So, that's one level of personalization. The second level of personalization, which is around technology, is also very, very critical because in the current situation, a lot of us are getting pegged not by other banks or other BFSI folks, but we are being pegged by other digital experiences that a customer is having. So, for example, an e-commerce website which a customer may like, or e-commerce app that a customer may like, is his or her measure or benchmark of what he thinks about us. So, we need to be able to straddle both of these parts. And when I mentioned to you about the earlier aspect of personalization, which is the physical part, it's a function of how long have our employees stayed with the bank, how much do they know about the customer, are they able to anticipate. And this anticipation then in turn translates into what we build as business frameworks or as a structure for our digital medium. So a lot of what is going to happen and the delight which a customer is going to get is going to be iterative, but it will be built around excellence in anticipation.
Okay, excellence and anticipation, and clearly a lot of that. And Varun, let me toss that across to you, because when you talk about really the kind of touch points today that a customer has when it comes to experiencing and interacting with the brand, including banks, I mean, it's a bewildering number. But at the same time, that's generating a huge amount of data as well. So, how does, for instance, a company like Adobe really utilize and help brands to utilize this data effectively, and more importantly, personalize it and deliver on the kind of anticipatory sort of framework that MVS just referred to?
Absolutely. So, let me answer this question with a typical demand and supply lens, right? So, you talked about the amount of quantum of traffic that we are facing on our digital properties, right? So, look at India's digital economy, right? So, it's growing at 2.5 times more than India's GDP. Right. So in terms of number of users who are using smartphone as of date are more than 600 million. There are more than 700 million people who have access to the internet. Right. So, and while all this is happening, there is a paradigm shift in the customer segment with the Gen Zs and the millennials, causing a very generational shift. It's talked in every marketeer's room when they're talking about the changing target segments, right? So that is the volume and that is the scale that we are talking about, making India the second biggest customer market for the digital customers, right? So that's the scale we are talking about. Now, for this, catering to this kind of demand, we have to have a robust platform, right? So that is where Adobe comes in, right? So if I have to summarize in 3 words what Adobe does, we do personalization at scale, right? So imagine this kind of quantum of network traffic hitting the digital properties, and that is where the robustness of the platform comes in, right? So from a life cycle of a customer, right? So there are 3 stages. One is the acquisition, second is the engagement, and third is the retention, right? So Adobe's Experience Cloud platform caters to the all 3 aspects of a life cycle by having solutions around 4 areas, right? Having a robust content and collaboration platform. So having the synergies between the marketeer, the IT organization, and the creative agencies within the organizations, and managing the content at scale. Second, data and insights, having that kind of intelligence real time for the marketeer and for the data scientist to take decisions on the fly. Thirdly, looking at customer journeys, omni-channel, and fourthly, providing a experience-driven commerce, right? So monetizing that whole content. So that is how Adobe really adds value.
Okay, and you've given us some great insights. Let me turn to MVS and really ask him about whether or not they're able to mine those insights. And given, as we just spoke about, there are so many diverse customer segments. There's the Gen Z, there are the millennials, there are those who just like the good old physical world and want to speak to the bank manager. So, how are you sort of balancing yourself when it comes to all these diverse customer segments, and how has technology really been able to help you, including some of the solutions that Adobe mentioned?
Yeah. So, Paramita, one is that technology is porous in the sense that what I buy today, somebody else might be able to go out and buy it, in about 3 months' time or whatever that's all. Plus, it is product parity. Now, what really is going to differentiate is how is the intellectual capital of an organization going to use these tools, which allow us to deliver a omni kind of an experience, which Varun was mentioning. And when he mentioned about this personalization of scale, it is very critical because particularly for us, being a banking brand, we are almost in an election kind of a mode. Every day we need to wake up and say something new or to reinforce, a particular thought to each of our customers. Because in terms of products, as I mentioned to you, there is enough and more parity in the market. So why does a customer stay here? It is because you are able to use platforms like the ones which Varun mentioned to be able to not only look at the back of the funnel, but also you are able to telescope it and say what is going to come next. And this whole thing of anticipation, which I told you about earlier, is a very, very critical piece. It's almost like a drive-in and picking up a burger and going out. So that is the kind of experience you need to deliver digitally. The other part, which also happens constantly, is that there are streams of data or crumbs of data which are being thrown in either internally or in the external environment. And therefore, if I'm able to bring all of it together into a black box and say that, hey, I understand you as a consumer, or I understand what your interests are, and therefore pitch him a product which is relevant in an environment which he's used to. So there are some people who are used to using the mobile banking piece, or some people who are used to using the internet banking piece. I'm talking about our industry. Some people who are now more and more conversant by using the bot. But all three of them stitched up together, and if the consumer has a choice of not wanting to go to a particular place and he wants to come to some other place, am I able to know that this is the customer who has come in, and therefore continue the conversation where it has left?
Varun, let me take across some of those points and expectations from brands, because clearly anticipating, retaining the customer, and being able to collate all this data, I mean, these are huge challenge points. Let's start with insights first. I mean, you spoke about analytics and insights and that black box, which really brings in all that data together. But that's would you say that's been a bit of a struggle point, or what would you advise brands, and particularly banks and those in the BFSI space? How should they really navigate this journey with the help of the latest tools?
My recommendation would be that while a lot of focus is being at automation, artificial intelligence, And MVS talked about the human element to it, right? So I think the machine learning and automation and the human element has to go hand in hand, right? So the genesis of artificial intelligence and machine learning was to bring economies of scale as well, right? So while you are working towards providing an exceptional customer experience, but cost efficiencies and the questions from the CFO's office also set in, right? So while the artificial intelligence and automation would ensure faster time to market, improved operational efficiencies, enhanced customer experiences, and to reduce cost. I'll give an example, right? So you walk into a store, right? And as as a stack, as a technology, I'm able to identify you as a prospect or as a customer, and the salesperson gets a notification that are you a first time visitor, are you an existing customer, and depending on that my interaction would you with you changes, right? So and depending on your past behavior patterns with the brand, I would get some more insights as a salesperson about you. So I'll be able to break ice with you faster, and I would be able to provide you a better experience, right? So that's the human touch and the automation and artificial intelligence working in tandem, right? So a balance of old school and the new tech age stack.
Indeed. And having said that, I mean, in today's day and age, MVS, talking about banks, it's a completely different experience that we as customers are getting to learn of. And we are also learning about how, the world is changing for us as customers, given the way brands such as yours are striving to deliver. However, there are many pain points, right? I mean, it is a utopian world where that perfect balance is found between the physical, between the automation, and really using that analytics effectively. If you were to point out some key challenges that you face in really making that transition and effectively delivering on that return on investment, what would they be?
So, in my mind, one of the biggest challenges that marketers face, and if it was, say, 20 years before, I would have said, the data is very unstructured. We don't have the data of a proper kind. But at this point in time, I can tell you with a lot of confidence that most of the data in the bank is structured. And now you are also having APIs which ping into a Sybil or which ping into an Experian kind of a platform to give you information about the credit worthiness of the customer. So that part is history now. But I think the biggest, and I would say that the only challenge that we really, really face right now is whether our understanding of the customer latest, or is it latest minus one or latest minus seven. Because if you are trying to deliver a highly personalized experience, and for example, if you were to be in the hospitality industry, you should know how the customer interacted with your brand just in the previous visit. Where did he stay, what kind of food that did the customer have, did he have any special needs or stuff like that. Now that stream of information is coming across from all places, and the point is that when you look at the consumer also, he's a set of multiple personalities in the same personality, in the sense that I might be a different guy on a social media platform, I might be an absolutely different guy on a podcast like this, and I might be a totally different person in a collaboration kind of a platform. So how do you bring in the three MBSs to come to arrive that this is the kind of person he is and this is what I want to go out and give? So I think the incoming stream of data, or if you can call it as the headwind of data, is the biggest challenge. And therefore, how do you sort of bring it down the funnel and ensure that there is enough and more vents to sort of take the pressure off, because then that will allow you to sit and think, what is the next thing that I want to go out and give? So that's really the challenge. The other part, I think, is that as a marketeer, you can really get overwhelmed saying that data everywhere, and you don't know what to go out and do about it. But a lot of frameworking or a lot of benchmarking is about what do you not want to do with a customer. And I think once you sort of sort that, then a lot of the dissonance and a lot of this overwhelming with the data which is coming in will go away.
So, Varun, that's a tailor-made question from perhaps a prospective client that, how do you handle this deluge of data? How do you personalize without really becoming perhaps a carbon copy of what other brands are also trying to achieve in your space, given that they also have access to a lot of the similar points of data and yet create and cater to the customer's experiences?
Yeah, so I think talking about giving the edge to our customers, I'll discuss about a very interesting data point that 70% of the customers dropped off in their journeys through different brand interactions in 2022, right? So customer expects very very realistic interactions, and when that doesn't happen, the drop offs happen, right? So that's one aspect, right? So second aspect is that how do I connect offline to online, right? So talking from purely a bank perspective, right? So do I know how my interaction was when I entered the branch? Am I, MVS talked about three MVSs, right? So one person goes to a particular branch. Is he the same person who had a day prior reached out to the contact center with a problem? And is he the third person, the same person who has been trying to solve his issues or trying to interact with a brand in a certain way through the digital properties, right? And am I able to stitch all three together, right? So am I able to stitch the offline journey with the online journey, right? So that is somewhere that really gives that edge to brands these days.
Right. I think well put. And, if I can toss that back to you, MVS, would you say perhaps the most finicky or the most, or rather the customers with the lowest attention span? And I don't again want to be blamed for putting them in a box, but, Gen Zs and millennials, would you say they are the ones who are perhaps the most challenging to sort of hold on to, keep their attention, given the fact that, they have. They've pretty much, a lot of them are digital natives and they have very, very short attention spans as well.
So, Paramita, neither do the Gen Zs nor the technology give me any heebie-jeebies. So let's not think about it that way. But I think it's like, again, I'll go back to cricket, and it's a nice analogy. Just that the format of the game has been changing. You had 5-day test matches, then you had 50 over matches, and now you have a T20. So the whole idea is that how do you make it exciting? How do you make it very pinpointed in a moment of short attention spans? And I just want to add one more layer to this technology. I think in all of this, we also need to know, or we also need to have at the back of our mind, that content is always going to be the king. And I think most of us as marketeers, we need to be almost like a film production company, thinking about all kind of content which we want to go and deliver. And platforms like Adobe and the other platforms which are there in the market allow us the efficiency of the delivery, and it allows us to go and deliver in a seamless format, in the sense that the same film can be viewed in a similar resolution on a mobile phone, or on a large television set, or on your laptop as well. So it's very, very important for you to know what are the 2 or 3 things that you want to clearly tell people. And therefore, what is the platform that you will go out and use to ensure that there is seamless delivery, so that message is done. You want it to come really quick and you want to move on. So it's not like a 7-course meal, but it's a small protein pill that you want to give, and then that's the end of it.
So let me take that point about Gen Zs, and it's definitely not giving heebie-jeebies to MVS. Are they giving you some heebie-jeebies, Varun?
Uh, Not at all, because I would say, when it comes to Gen Zs, there are challenges, but that's also a window of opportunity for us, because their own decision to buy, decision to execute is totally tilted towards digital, right? So that opens a lot of opportunities as well, right? So talking about Gen Zs, I truly believe that. To within the heart of providing a great customer experience, there is an emotional connect that gets created between the brand and the user, right? So Gen Z's ask is very clear, right? Know me, show me, and help me, right? So I'll talk about that. So know me as a customer, as a prospect. Get hold of my imagination at the right time, right? They're also toggling between various devices at the same time, right? So one of the technology challenges that comes in is that, are we able to do that cross device stitching and figuring out that, is it the same person or not, right? So know me as a prospect or the customer, show me the content which is relevant to me at the right time through the right channel, right? So, and
Right.
help me in terms of taking the right decision at the right time, right? So I think these are the three tenets that really define the way Gen Zs are being tackled by various brands.
Okay, let me just take this conversation now outside of Gen Zs. But the pillars remain the same. Know me, show me, and help me. And MVS, I'm sure they apply to all the campaigns and all the tools that you're deploying. But between know me and getting to know me a little too well, given the privacy concerns, I mean, how are you balancing the two, especially within the regulatory frameworks? Because BFSI, in that sense, perhaps is the most regulated amongst the various sectors.
So, I think the way to look at it is that every consumer is a celebrity, right? When you try and get too close to the celebrity, they have this sense of being overwhelmed and they become a bit more closed, and you lose the moment of charm or joy of being with the celebrity whom you like so much. So when you start looking at your customers that way, you know for a fact that though you may know where is the customer, what is his age group or stuff like that, or what other kind of information, you allow for a lot of discretion to happen. I think you need to give a lot of space. When it comes to bank, we are very particular that our own data, we want to sort of safeguard it for sure, and we want to use it to service better, and that's where the whole part is. But if I keep, it's almost like trolling you, digitally trolling you all the while, then it is not something that you're going to like. And the point is that, unlike a brand which is fully on a digital kind of a platform, we also have a physical presence. So the backlash can happen on either side. If the customer feels that he's being intimidated by your constant, knowledge that you're increasing, and therefore the way you're conducting yourself as a brand, the customer is going to end up at your branch, and there's going to be a huge furore there. If the
Right.
branch experience is not okay, then you will be splashed all over the social media. So I think giving a bit of space, and we do this with kids nowadays, good touch and bad touch. I think technology needs to understand what is a good touch and what is a bad touch, and be very, very discreet, because the customer trusts you. At the same time, doesn't want you to believe that you know far too much about him or her, that it can sort of be overwhelming for them. So that's how you need to go and manage this.
So Varun, great points, MBS. And Varun, how do you sort of respond to this? And who draws that line? Is regulation required? Is it already inbuilt, for instance, in some of the tools that you're deploying in order to really retain the customer's trust during this personalization journey?
I think it's a collective responsibility between the tech platform and the business, right? So it's a collective responsibility to ensure that you don't cross the line, right? So that's pretty I would say the genesis of any digital interaction. Trust, as MVS rightly said, is the centerpiece in a digital economy when you are interacting through technology, right? So organizations also have to realize that there has to be a consent based interaction. Me as a customer and a prospect should have the liberty to define that this is my ring, or this is my area where I would want this particular brand to interact with me with, right? So I have to define my own guardrail.
For the future, Varun, let me start with you very quickly. What do you think brands and marketers need to focus on in terms of the technology deliverables in making their customer experience more personalized using these tools? What does the future look like?
I think future is all about extending a same level, same degree of digital experience across the channels, across the surfaces. When I say surfaces, across web, across app, and the sorts, even extending it to the augmented reality going forward.
Indeed, and we just had some new releases coming in from Apple the other day. So it looks like our augmented reality is here to grow and really give us some new opportunities. So is that something you're keeping an eye out on, MBS, in terms of the next level of interaction, the next level of really getting to know your customer for the future?
Now that is also a very thin line. If your product is made for a very, very unique kind of a, say, AR kind of a use case, then it is easy for you to go out and do. But just because somebody else is doing, if I get a FOMO and I also try and go out and do that act, I don't think I'll be able to pull off, and the customer will again see it, and I'll look clumsy. Now, that kind of slip showing out will have a reverse impact on the brand. So I think as a marketer, you need to be conscious about what is the area of play that your product or service has, and how much can you go out and really pick up every possible technology which is coming in.
But gentlemen, it's been such a rich discussion. Thank you so much for giving us a glimpse into your challenges today, how technology is, of course, helping us solve them, and into the future as well, because it's all about helping brands, making the digital economy more personal. And that brings us to the end of another podcast of Adobe Experience Makers, brought to you by CNBC TV18. Thank you so much for joining us today.
CNBC TV18, Adobe present Experience Makers.